So a couple of years ago, a friend of mine invited me to go with her to Spa World out in Centerville. If you don't know, it's one of those Korean Asian spas where you soak in pools of different temperatures and no swimsuits, just your skin and your soul. And so we're there, and this is my first time with any such experience, and I'm loving it. I kind of felt like a baby, just in the tub being free, like when we were little, and I would share baths with my sister or sometimes my friends, and so I'm sitting in the tub, and it's like 102 degrees, and I'm with my friend, and I look over and I see this woman go into the chill tub, and that's like 62 degrees in temperature, and that's cold. The body's healthy temperature hovers around like 97 to 99, so that is a big difference. I was like, I'm not going in there. This is a spa. I came here to feel good and to be soothed, not to be cold on purpose. I barely even like the water. But then something inside sings to me. Jordan River, chilly and cold. It chills the body, but not the soul. And a bell rings for me. I think, oh, hey, this is something my ancestors sang about. And it had something to do with feeling the spirit. And I'm thinking, what are they talking about? I say, okay, let's find out. So I step in, ankles first, and then to my calves, and then my knees, and then my stomach. And each new depth, I count to 10 to get used to the temperature shift. And then up to my neck. And we stop here because I ain't finna get my hair wet. But now I'm all the way in, and it's so cold, I want to leave. But again, I count to 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then I notice that I'm warm again from within. I can literally feel from my heart these waves of heat, energy flowing all through my body to adjust my internal temperature. And then another chime comes in from a book I was reading at the time called The Secret Teachings of Plants, The Intelligence of the Heart and the Direct Perception of Nature. And it describes the molecular functions of plant life and how when we look at the properties of plants at the cellular level, we see that the human heart has similar mechanisms of organizing and stabilizing the body through its own cognitive abilities. Because the heart is not just a muscle that pumps blood. The heart is an organ that emits, perceives, and integrates information in electromagnetic waves to and from the external world in cooperative connection with our other individuated physical senses. Is that mine, folks? Okay, good, it's fine. I was like, that would have been amazing. But they do this like to and from the external world in cooperative connection with our other individuated physical senses, touch, taste, smell, sound, vision, in concert with all of the neurological functions throughout our bodies. And so the story of me in this zero chill tub, to indulge my curiosity, listening to the echoes of my ancestors, I got to experience my heart do this very thing as the central unifying organ of all the functional layers of my system, prompting a parasympathetic response to my external environment. And I suspect that these electromagnetic waves that the heart is evolved to synchronize with, interpret, and respond to is what my ancestors recognized as the spirit. And maybe prayer can be as simple as taking the time, counting to 10, to pay attention. This adaptive response is what a healthy heart will do in all of us if we would only allow the waves of the spirit to move and speak to it. And not only does it affect my physiological well-being, when I remember to live my life from this space, I feel the instincts and freedom of my childhood, just like being at the bathhouse. I feel the epigenetics of wisdom, resilience, joy, sensitivity, creativity, and power that sustained the people who survived an impossible existence all come to life inside me. And it feels so powerful that I feel like I could never forget. And yet, because we have been conditioned in this capitalist paradigm born of the Western European culture that colonized not just this land, but also our bodies and our minds, this capitalist paradigm that prioritizes quantitative calculations of value, intellect, logic, and a hyper-emphasis on the brain as the central commanding organism of our awareness, our hearts have become out of practice, often erratic, desperately trying to get us to listen to our true selves and to one another. The paradigms of scientific study in the Western world limit our knowledge inasmuch as they worship, that is, to praise the worthiness of, empirical knowledge, largely at the expense and exclusion of experiential understanding. Mathematics and science have wooed us with the promises of explanations for and total control of everything, dressed up in suits masquerading as safety, endangering our sensitivity to our internal and external ecosystems that have sustained us, brought many of us this far by faith. Because the natural fact of life is there is no such living thing as a straight line, a perfect sphere, a geometric angle of predictable value. Life is not linear in its perfection. Yet we celebrate and force ourselves into submission to static, isolated perspectives that say truth is but a linear trajectory of facts, and this is how we are to know the world. That we as living beings are predictively quantifiable sum value of causes and effects. But a healthy heartbeat, especially observable in the young, is highly irregular. It's as we get older, less active and less responsive to our environments that our hearts tend to develop very predictable rates, not to be confused with rhythm. And this is a quality that is predictive of disease, dis-ease. Adapting and responding is no longer easy. Even the etymology of the word geometry breaks down to measurement of the earth. But even with the available calculated measures of our planet's coastlines, the edges of these coasts are so obviously and infinitely ragged, shifting, and complex. There is no way in the world any human or artificial intelligence could actually measure it. And this necessarily means that the scientific perspectives we take for granted as objective are often, in reality, highly subjective. Now, mind you, the point here is not to discredit or devalue the usefulness and contributions of scientific research, development, and practice. The point is to, from this logical perspective that we do so value and accept, recognize that we cannot perceive, know, and understand reality accurately from this perspective in isolation. And I figure it must be really essential to recognize the limitations of a logical perspective and to keep this in the foreground of our consciousness, our conscious community values. Because if we want to change the world, we have to know it. If we are to know the world, we cannot just measure, judge, and attempt to define it. We have to feel it and know ourselves as part of that world so that we can be transformed into the change we want to see. And you know, a collective of us at this church, we've been exploring the hemispheric functions of the brain, trying to find our way out of the analytical snares of the left brain to the liberties of our right brain creativity and intuition, by discussing research and analysis on the subject. And so, of course, and I love it, but of course it's tricky to find our way out of this. How do we access and engage the right hemisphere of the brain with left brain mechanisms? The master's tools will never bring down the master's house. These parts of our whole cerebral system are meant to cooperate with, not command one another. So what part of our bodies function as the central operating system by which we can do the necessary repairs? Multiple disciplines, Philosophical teachings and ancient practices have known, found, and expressed that it is the heart, an oscillatory muscle with cognitive properties that is meant to be the primary receiver and communicator of our perceptions that allow us to regulate our systems and navigate the world. It is the heart that integrates the information from our concert of physical and neurological senses and sends a complex yet composite set of messages to the brain to interpret, to manifest as thought, and then execute into action. We listen to our hearts, and we listen with our hearts. And with just a brief and very basic look at cell parts and their formation, we see that one of the major parts is the plasma membrane, which is kind of like the skin of a cell. And this biological clothing for a microscopic organism has thousands of receptors across its surface that are designed to detect all manner of stimuli, electric, magnetic, pressure, hormonal, and other types. And one of its major responses to some of this activity is to open or close even tinier portals into and out of the cell. And all self-organized systems have electromagnetic identities at the cellular level. They don't even have to be alive. And researchers have observed that in the self-organization of plant cells, there is literally an interplay of vibrations that entrain to one another. That is, they match the rhythm of the vibrations imprinted into their genetic code, fuse and develop into distinct expressions of form and life. And so it's kind of like attracting like. It's recognition of signature vibrations that cells carry, which tell them where they belong to be part of life, like their kindred spirits. And it happens at all levels of an organism's development. In embryos, these electric fields of the cells direct placement and differentiation of the cells like a sorting hat within it so that it will form into a fetus. And many of you probably know that the first of these parts to form is the heart. The electric signals in these heart cells that recognize each other develop through an intricate process of entrainment, being able to synchronize their contraction patterns to effectively pump blood. And there are multiple entrainment functions of heart cells that extend to synchronizing their activity with surrounding and connected cells within the body and with the rhythms of their environment so that the system of the organism can adapt to it for its sustained survival. The heart, beloved, is literally the first parts of us to form. Like plant cells, heart cells self-organize and train based on their recognition of matching electromagnetic signals, waves that say, we belong together. Let's make something new. And they fuse into the form of a functioning organism, initiating the formation of the other parts that make us whole and alive. If you ask me, it really sounds like this is literally the electric, magnetic, life-sustaining power of love. Life is always making love, and I suspect the phenomenon of pleasure and play is what perpetuates its creation and evolution. In fact, there is also a study just this year that demonstrated that an audience of concert goers who were given monitors to wear during the performance synced up their heart rates, their breathing, and their perspiration levels. It certainly tracks that the patterns of sound and repetition of rhythms in music would evoke pleasurable responses that literally connect our hearts to the experience and to one another. But anyway, so zoom out again to the immediate reality of your consciousness in your physical body, whether you believe these to be distinct phenomena or not, because I'm talking about finding our way back home to our hearts. Research has shown that when we shift our focus to sensing rather than thinking, it slows our cardiac and sympathetic functions, and it affects all of our physiological and cognitive functioning. This is called heart coherence. Pupils dilate, heart rate slows, and the body relaxes. The heart can send specific messages to the rest of the systems which do not habituate. They are dynamic and fresh with every beat. They are adaptive. And when our focus is immersed in the heart's response to our environment, our heart rhythms become smoother as its electromagnetic frequencies start to synchronize. And when frequencies synchronize, they not only clarify the signals, they amplify them. And our other biological oscillators, the ones that change and shift, neural, hormonal, metabolic, cellular, all across the body, they begin to synchronize with the waves of the heart. And according to research, when all these systemic functions are in sync, our cortisol production decreases, our DHEA hormones, those responsible for tissue repair, insulin sensitivity, and sense of well-being, and sexual hormone production, they can increase by 100%. Our blood pressure lowers. Our peripheral vision is enhanced. Immunoglobulin A is increased, which helps prevent infections. And these are only a few of the functional optimizations that have been observed when our systems are entrained to the heart's coherence. Linear thinking, strictly cerebral processes, on the other hand, have the exact opposite effect. When our focus is on cerebral responses and activity, linear thinking and analysis, and perhaps this is how the left brain ends up taking over, our systemic processes are much less coherent. The heart ends up trying to couple itself with multiple systems on a permanent basis, and its cells no longer vibrate as a unified group. The whole system becomes incoherent when the heart is not allowed to lead. And it becomes less responsive to the environment because the brain is taking over. When there is a narrower range of heart rate variation, there is a higher prevalence of depression, panic disorders, and heart disease, the latter of which is the #1 killer in the United States. It is no surprise that this white supremacist patriarchal culture of capitalism has managed to sustain its reign of tyranny in drizzles and downpours by getting us to forget who we are, destroying our relationship with ourselves and with one another, where belonging has been perverted into possessing people, life, and land as objects to be owned rather than precious resources to be protected and respected in relationship. And see, this is why, part of why I think it is important, I see it as important to love your enemies. Because when you honor the fact that you are in relationship, and when you hold the respect for whatever it means to them to survive, you have access to sense and perceive what they're trying to do to you and why. These entities want us to be distracted, despairing, and disconnected. They do not want us to be focused, curious, and connected, because that's what makes us truly powerful. Those are the powers of the heart, to recognize the light in one another, with similar and complementary energies that harmonize to say, hey, I know you. We belong together. Let's make something new. And when our hearts can facilitate the coherence of our whole systems, we have the power to emit the coherent message of who we are and who we can become together, just from the gift of our shared presence. And with this power, we can perceive what is manifesting in those positioned as our enemies, and with patient attention, know how to respond. From that erotic force with us that dances in the fight, flexible, adaptive, iridescent with joy and sorrow, ecstasy and rage, all different frequencies of the light of love that connects all of us. You're coming after the homeless and the impoverished, city crime with the National Guard. That's a bit much, but thank you for reminding us that there are so many people in need. Let's help them find a safe place to be. Let's help keep it from happening by making accessible opportunities for people to come together. Let's make it a party. like the pupils that dilate, let's abandon this fear state and enlarge the territory of our peripheral vision to see the whole picture, and let's make it impossible to distract us from the power in our hearts, because they're so engaged with the people and the world we love that we can't look away from them. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. There is power in connecting to and opening your heart. Open it to yourself. Open it to your loved ones. Open it to the world and witness the beauty in its brokenness, in our brokenness, reaching desperately to belong to ourselves and to one another again. Rejoice in love always and discover the ways in which the glorious story of love can be the inspiration for our work for justice, harmony, and a peace that passes understanding. The freedom our ancestors are dreaming of in all of our hearts. Amen. Amen. It takes practice to anchor in this place when we're used to sailing away on our thoughts. So start simple. Right now, just take a good full count to 10 to be in your heart. Then share on your connection card whatever it is you feel. Amen. Please write your response on the connection card, or if you're on Zoom, you can put it in the chat. And now is also the time that you may join Cindy at the candle table to light a candle of hope, remembrance, or gratitude. If you are here in the sanctuary, you may also share your joys or concerns in the Book of Life, which is it over here? Because apparently this is, it's back there. We've forgotten about it for a while, but that is there, so please share your hopes and concerns in the Book of Life. And if you have joined us remotely, you may share that in the chat as well, or email one of our ministers directly. Thank you.